Sure.
Hi, good morning. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending on where people are joining from. And a very warm welcome to the fourth session of the QETCI Quantum Pulse. This is a session where we actually do a deep dive into quantum relevant topics relevant to the ecosystem. Uh, those days are gone where we would just talk about awareness sessions, basic details about quantum. We do a little bit more deep dive. We've been doing sessions on very specific technology topics. But today's session is slightly different. Around 1.5 to 2 years ago, we had actually done a similar panel which was focused on skills in quantum, the job opportunities, what does the landscape look like, how does education fit into this, and so on. And a lot has happened in the last 2 years in India, especially, and also around the world. And scenarios have really changed, right from the number of startups. Just to quote a number, in 2021, there were around five quantum startups, out of which three or four were focused on education. So really, two quantum startups doing technical work at that time. And today we have around 45 startups in India which are focused on quantum. So numbers have changed. The National Quantum Mission has been launched in the interim, and the T hubs or the technical hubs have been selected. In India, there has been a lot of changes for the policies for startups associated with quantum. And internationally, when we look at progress, there's a lot of progress that has happened in the interim, whether it was Google's announcement on error correction or Microsoft's announcement on progress in a completely different topology based qubits and so on, right? So I think it's a great time for us to look again at the ecosystem and examine how the skills, how the ecosystem looks like from an education, skill development, manpower requirement perspective, and how is it going to scale up. And we have a great set of panelists here, who I think will add a lot of value. Indranil, if you could please switch on your video as well, so that people can make out who the panelists are. And so today we have with us Professor Indranil, who is focused on quantum, and he's from IIIT. We have Gopika Changati, who is the head of research for Quantum AI Global. We have Padma Priya Mohan, who is a past quantum fellow with QETCI, but is now doing towards the end of her masters at TU Delft, focused on quantum. And Shantanu, who is a policy researcher who is very much part of QETCI, and he has been focusing a lot on the education ecosystem and exactly what we are going to be discussing about. So I thought it will be really useful to have him on the panel as well, and to bring some of those insights that QETCI has been deriving also onto the table. Before I go deeper into the discussion, I'm going to request all the panelists to share, like in 2 lines, a little bit more of an introduction about your quantum journey, right, and your focus areas and things like that. So over to you, Professor Indranil. And before that, thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for all the people who are joining. I hope you find this useful. Professor Indranil, over to you.
Thank you, Rina. Thank you for organizing this. This event. So I work on my journey with the quantum is for the last 15 to 20 years, where I was get to know about the subject when I was in masters and then in PhD. So and things are very fascinating from that time onwards, and I am more fascinated to work in the area in the quantum communication. So for these couple of years I've been working on quantum communication and quantum secret sharing, and more recently I am more interested and more engaging my full of my the entire time on quantum networks. So my to speak about my thrust areas: quantum network, quantum secret sharing. These are the things that I work on, and I've been fascinated by the subject till date.
Thank you very much. Gopika, over to you.
Yes, hi everyone. Thanking QETCI for coming up with this awareness session. and hope we can be mutually helpful for each other through this session. So I have started off with AI basically. So rather than quantum, I've started off with AI. So moving forward, back in 2020 around, that is where quantum is taking off in India, thanks to IBM. That is where I thought how machine learning and quantum computing both can come together. And we were solving very small toy problems back then with their very limited simulators and qubit processors that were available through cloud. And then when I joined this organization, we started off with quantum communication and sensing. So basically, we are working in quantum communication, quantum memory, EPS2KD, quantum repeater. So this is the vertical in communication. And quantum sensing, we are working with something called as Rydberg sensors and a magnetometer. With AI, we're doing a lot of other interesting things, but I would stick to quantum for this session. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Priya, over to you.
My quantum journey incidentally started with QETCI, but because QETCI and Reena Ma'am hosted a hackathon, and I'd heard about quantum stuff before. I had a couple of peers working on it. I'd read some textbooks, but only after the hackathon, it was a very hands-on learning experience. Having done that, that was in 2022, and I did a couple of internships, and now I'm doing my master's. I'm almost at the end with TU Delft. My program is Quantum Information Science and Technology. And for my thesis, I'm working with the Quantum Networks group, and I'm working on applications of entanglement.
Thank you. Over to you, Shantanu.
Thank you, Reena. Started my quantum journey in a very roundabout manner. I started after my bachelor's. I was specializing in cryptography and cybersecurity. Then I switched into policy side of things, looking at cyber, national security, and emerging tech. And that's where I discovered quantum technology and the impact quantum technology is going to have. And I've been continuing that journey and have like joined QETCI, where I'm a senior policy researcher. My main focus area right now is education and also other related area related quantum policy, such as startups, ecosystem development, etc.
Okay, so now that we know we have a very diverse set of experiences over here, right from technical research orientation to representing a company to policy people, and people who work on the policy side know that how rare is policy experience in quantum, right? And Shantanu had experience on working in quantum policy even before QETCI in Singapore. So with that background, let's go back in time a little bit. All of you have been part of the ecosystem in 2021-22 as well as today. Let's hear what was the situation then, so that we can, when we talk about the situation today, we have a reference to context. So whoever wants to go first. Professor Indranil, maybe you want to go first on this?
Yeah. So one of the most important aspect that had happened over the last couple of 4 years, there is a lot of push on quantum, and rightly so. And we have seen that, as you are mentioning in your introduction, that there are so many companies that are right now startups that are actually investing on quantums, and we have and from the perspective of research, we have seen there is an immense progress that has happened especially where I can talk about my domain, where we see in the quantum networks, we see repeater-based quantum networks, satellite-based quantum networks. All these things have happened, and there are experimental processes that are going on. Even in India, we see that there are, other than the theoretical groups, the experimental groups in Raman Research Institute and in PRL and in IIT Madras, they are coming up with wonderful experiments and also state of the art technology that is important for us. So and rightly so, the government has initiated this process of national quantum mission, and I think that with the commencement of the national quantum missions, things will move very fast, and things will move very fast in the right direction. So and there will be a lot of stakeholders here, and in the long run, it will not only going to improve the technology, but what we are discussing today regarding the education process, it is going to also enrich the education process that is associated with quantum.
So, and follow-up question to you, Professor, how does the education landscape look different today?
Yeah. So one of the things that we have seen in the last couple of years, especially if I take the example of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, we see that the masters MTech in quantum technology that came into being. So it started in 2021, and there is an around every year there is an application process, and there are 20 to 25, roughly around that number of students were taken, and it was very impressive to see their courses, the topics they are introducing, all the experimental backgrounds courses, hardcore physics courses, and also the courses that are associated with information theory. All these kinds of courses is actually equipping them, the young people, to get a hold of this subject, not only in ISC Bangalore, but also in, if I see that there are masters in quantum in ISAT Pune also. That is also in ISAT Pune, and there is a certification course in IIT Delhi that also has taken with along the quantum line. So I was seeing their course materials, and they are very state of the art and very modernized course material. So I feel with those examples taking into mind, and the many other institutions are definitely planning in that direction, so that there can be full-time master courses or PhD programs along with the UG trainings also. And this is very much required right at this moment, because there is a huge amount of workforce that will be required for every one of us.
All right, thank you so much. And coming to you, Gopika, joined you said you joined Quantum AI Global in 2022. And between 2022 and 2025, how have you seen the skill, the kind of, I mean, what does the skill landscape look like? What does the difference seem to you as being part of the industry?
Yes, Rina. So it was back then. I mean, if we have to go a little before also, 2020, 2021, it was still in research phase, right? Mostly initial years of this decade also, it was in research phase. So when we started off, we didn't want to just do research. Okay, we want to be the very few people. I mean, it's like we can just count on fingers, very few people who can bridge the gap between research and commercialization. So the the sweet spot here is prioritization in between. So how many of us can actually transition from the paperwork, laboratory work that we are doing, which we are doing since 100 years? We are celebrating even 100 years, 100th year of quantum science this year. But where is that bridge coming from? So that bridge comes from people who are rightly equipped with the skill set. We do have degrees, a lot of certification courses today. But where is that skill set coming from? And we realize that those skill sets are not defined just by academia. I mean, industry, the innovations that happen in industry actually defines the skill set required. So how did we solve this problem? If we have to talk about that, what we thought is we have a roadmap, we have a vision when we established a company, correct? So what do we require? We require people who have this actual skill set to work on it. So we started off something called as Q Academy. So whoever have applied to our uh, work, our roadmap, our vision, who want to work with us, we would start training them. They would still go through interviews, but we would start training them with the skill set that is required to work on the projects that we are doing. Because remember, we want to do research, prioritization, and commercialization, correct? That worked for us. So that worked for us. And top 10, we would hire, we would provide internships, and the rest we would again release it to the market for whoever want to. They can pursue higher education or go work for someone else. So this worked for us. So what I feel here is current changing trend, industry and it should come together for skill development. Otherwise, it will be a one-sided battle and will not go anywhere.
So, let me have a follow-up question for you. And there is some challenge we are facing in hearing you, Gopika. So, I think the follow-up
Okay,
question,
sorry.
maybe you can switch off your video for the time being.
Is it better now? Better now?
It's
Yeah.
breaking up. It's breaking up.
Is it better now, Reena? I'm so
Yeah, it's
sorry.
better now. Yeah, yeah. So I think
Is
in terms of the
yes, okay.
in terms of the skill set, there's a gap between what people learn in the from the standard education curriculum and then what the industry really needs. Can you give us some examples of the kind of gaps? Because you talked about some of the areas that you are focusing on, the company is focusing on. Can you throw some light into the nature of the gaps?
Correct. So, if we see ideally in India, we don't have such kind of degrees that provide specialization in quantum. See, when people talk about quantum, we have a very limited knowledge of quantum getting confined to just computing. Rina, I'm clear, right? My
Yeah,
voice
yeah,
is
very
audible,
clear.
correct?
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, yes. There's silos that people have about quantum. So quantum is just computing, and people start talking about speed of it and parallel processing. So quantum is just not about that. We need to see that there are four verticals of quantum, which is computing is one aspect of it. There is sensing, communications, materials, and devices. So we were very clear in what we want to venture to start off with. So we started off with communication and sensing. Computing, we are slowly starting off. So this clarity is something that we would expect from the candidate who are coming to apply for us. So there are certain skill sets that is required for somebody to come work in the laboratory in respects to having a good knowledge of physics. And there are certain aspects wherein they can come from electronics or mechanical and they can work on optomechanics, optoelectronics, and they can still contribute to this quantum hardware building. So this clarity we would expect from the candidate based on their background. So there is
Did
theory
you have to
versus
train them? Did you have to train them in certain areas?
absolutely, absolutely. So degrees just get you at the door, correct? So good. Okay, you come from ECA background, you come from mechanical background, computer science background, very good, physics background. So after that, how are you able to bridge this theory versus practical? This kind of resource management is something that we have done. You have a good knowledge with theory, we want people like them. Good with research, yes, we would want them. But do you have that aptitude in you wherein you can bridge this with us because we don't want to stop there. That is what we have been doing with the candidates so far.
Okay, okay, great. Thank you very much. Priya, coming over to you.
Thanks.
I think in your case, you studied here in India and then you were studying in, Netherlands. Now, first of all, your thoughts on the skill development scenario and how it has changed, and then I'll have follow-up questions.
Um, Yeah, to answer your question and also to provide some more context to what Gopika was just saying, I think what I've experienced and the shift that I've experienced in how I used to study back in India when I did my bachelor, or even when I did an internship, which was quantum related, versus now that I'm doing a focused master in the Netherlands at TU Delft with QTech. I see that even though in my master we have courses that teach us about quantum communication networks, quantum sensing, quantum computing, and different layers of the stack from the application layer all the way down to the hardware in between the firmware. A very important thing that's part of my program, and I think should be part of other programs, is you have to have a project component. And this project component that allows you to work with people from other backgrounds. Because I have my bachelor is in electronics engineering, but working in a quantum lab or in a quantum group with somebody else who has a background in computer science and then another person who has a background in physics, and then working together with them because quantum is quite interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, in fact. So that sort of to be able to get an opportunity to practice that, I think is very, very important, which is something that I'm getting now, which I didn't have before. Yeah.
So help us understand that, right? I mean,
Mhm.
almost so every course has a project associated with it.
Pretty much. So, for instance, if I say we're talking about a course on, we have a course in my program called Quantum Devices and Interfaces. Quantum and Devices and Interfaces talks about not just the quantum computer or the processor or the chip, but all of the control, electronics, the cryogenic environment, so all of that, which comes from a very electrical and electronics perspective. And now we have a project associated with that course, which allows us to step into the lab, or if you don't want to step into the lab, do a bunch of simulations in order to understand how control electronics and the actual chip actually gets interfaced. And you do this in a group, you don't do this by yourself because you want to be able to learn from people with different backgrounds. And that's just one example. And we have this for every course. If it's a more theoretical course, for instance, qubit dynamics and quantum control, which is an optimal control theory course, very physics focused. And so it's very theoretical, very rigorous, mathematical. But then at the end of it, along with the exam that we write, we also have a project where you actually have to simulate a spin qubit and and manipulate a bunch of parameters and understand how it's working. So you always have a project component in a group that allows you to understand what it's like to actually work with these systems.
What does the availability in the lab look like? I mean, so let's say there are how many people in your class?
In my batch, we have 18 because this was the first, so I'm part of the first batch of the quantum master that started here in the Netherlands.
Okay.
But now we're 36 and then it's growing, yeah. But
Right.
18.
18 and okay, let's assume 36 for the next
Yeah, okay.
batch. And so, what is the ratio between access to hardware compared to the number of people?
It depends on, so I think it's more of it's a choice. You get to mold your degree the way you want to. You get to choose your focus. So that I have some friends in my class who have decided not to, they don't want to look at the hardware side of things. So they don't necessarily, there is access. If they wanted to, they would be able to. But then they've decided to focus more on algorithms. What really helps is that in the same vicinity, you have people working on hardware and you have people working on algorithms. So even if you don't go and enter the lab, you always have access to these people working on hardware that you can speak to. And because we have lunches together and we're all in the same place,
What does the
inevitably,
lab look like? I mean, basically, my
yeah.
question is how well equipped is the lab for supporting the master's program?
Yeah, I think the labs are super well equipped. It's really nice also that the PIs of the labs, they teach courses for us. So inevitably, when they're doing a course, even if they're teaching something which is maybe 6 months old, there's always current research being communicated. And then if you want, so we have a lot of lab visits and things like that. And not only lab visits, Delft also has a pretty nice quantum ecosystem, so a company ecosystem, a startup ecosystem. They're just around the block. So we also have a lot of company visits and we can get in touch with them. So I think that just the way the ecosystem is here and the access that students like me have, that's been really helpful. And I can see that some of that is happening even in some places in India. I think IIT Madras, for one, is a really nice place like that. IISc, all of these premier institutes, Triple IIT Hyderabad as well. But yeah, in terms of hardware access, we might have a little more way to go.
Sure. Thank you very much. Now over to you, Shantanu. I think maybe you can shed a more generic light on how the ecosystems have changed from a skill development perspective and how education and skill development is looking different today than maybe 2021, 22.
Yeah, sure. I'll just give a bird eye view of the ecosystem. So I think since establishment of NQM, there has been more focus and more, especially like monetary focus on converting theory to application. So there has been a lot of startups that has come up since 2022. That means also like more jobs and more jobs from like application perspective. Uh, I think in the short term, there would be more focus on jobs that are more theoretical and grounded in quantum science and technology. We would see over the years that shift towards uh, more of like general and bachelor level jobs available as well. So I think from a skill perspective, the skills that were required 2 3 years ago to enter the market has changed, and also the entry or barrier has been slightly lowered. People are more accepting of quantum. Quantum also has distributed from like these premium institutions like ISC and IIT, and like has been being distributed all over India. There has been more faculty development program being launched, and to support that, there has been a launch of undergrad uh, courses in quantum, and there has been 4 or 5 already like master's courses running in India. So over the years, we would see those number increase, and the faculty development program are definitely helping in that. In 2022, there were, I think, between 1 to 10 faculty development program. That number has doubled, and in 2025 should triple as well. Uh, and these faculty development programs aren't based out of tier one or tier X cities, but more focused on tier two and tier Y cities. So there's more faculty to teach there, and there will be more quantum courses coming up. Uh, with the undergrad courses that NQM has launched, there would be, I think this year would be the first batch that would be taken up. So around 50, 30 to 50
You mean the the minors?
yes, the
Yeah.
undergrad minor program. Yeah, so around 30 to 50 institutions would be taking up according to NQM. So we would be seeing more activity in that space.
Right. Can you tell us what is so unique about these minors?
So
And why so many of them? Why not just have one quantum minor? I mean, I know the answer, but I think I'm sure people want to know about it. Yeah.
yeah, so the courses that were designed were focused on all 4 verticals that Gopika mentioned. So, and all of these programs are more hands-on experience and provide lab experience. So, NQM is to make it available to a wider audience, has done the faculty development program and simultaneously also boosting a lab uh, facilities all over India so that these courses can be taught on like specific quantum hardware, and yeah, those materials can be used.
All right. Now, coming back to, I think the other question, we have an education system which is really ramping up in a big way, and there is, more and more people doing masters or doing these certification courses. By next year, there will be more applicants to the minor 4 years since, and 4 years hence, we will have people who will have done a major degree and then a minor in quantum, some stream of quantum. So the workforce is definitely going to expand. But if we look at the point that Gopika talked about, that there is something which people learn in the education stream, but when they come on the ground and they have to work in a company, then there is a gap. So, how much of that gap, Gopika, do you think is going to be addressed by this minors uh, program that is being launched? The fact that they are actually encouraging people to, somebody who's doing an electronics degree, for example, to do a minor in quantum, maybe sensing, right? Do you think this is going to solve the problem? Gopika, over to you.
I was about to say, Shantanu, you're on mute. Please unmute. Sorry. So, yes, I have went through this AICT course. I mean, we were discussing it anywhere. Hello?
Yes, we can hear
My
you.
voice is clear? Am I breaking anywhere? Okay. So we went through a lot of meetings and sessions, including academia and industry, to see which curriculum is good to be proposed. I think QETCI has done a great job in putting forth the proposal to to get this AICT thing going.
Your voice is
Having
now
said
getting
that,
lost. Yeah. So it keeps breaking up.
oh, I'm sorry. Now is it better?
Yeah, it is better. I think when you move around, it goes away. Yeah.
Okay. So having said that, Reena, whatever the paperwork has been done, whatever curriculum has been proposed by ACTA, and whatever the universities or private institutions, academias decide to do, it is important to have a hands-on experience given to the students during their minor or major degree or during their bachelor's or master's. Period. That is important. So how do we do it? So I'll tell you a beautiful thing that Tamil Nadu government has done, a non-Moduvalan program through which Q Control initiated alongside with Tamil Nadu government, and we were also in partnership with Q Control. We have trained 3,000 resources in the area of quantum computing. They've had this beautiful edutech program to teach practically, this
do as you learn as you do kind of a thing. You have this circuit going on, you have some questions, and they give you multiple chances to learn and to build that circuit to solve a specific problem. How would you like to put this problem on a quantum computer and then get some result? So the beautifully designed software has been implemented there to train these 3,000 skilled resources. Now just imagine Tamil Nadu government just giving a curriculum to the institutions, organizations, academias, and saying that give degrees with the curriculum. I'm sure the students today have high IQs, everybody will get 95. But end of the day, are they resourceful for India? Are they resourceful for the industry? That bridge Q Control has done, Quantum AI Global has done in partnership. So if that is the case, if AICTE can put forth a proposal that to implement this minor degree, every academic institution should have a partnership of should use a kind of a platform, a hands-on platform for the students to actually understand what they are reading through these textbooks. No, that is where we need to.
I think this is great. And since your voice was breaking up a little bit, let me repeat that. I think what Gopika is saying is that for every course, whether it's a minor, I think she emphasized minor, but let me elaborate on that further. Not just minor, any course. If we can have industry partnerships where hands on experience can be enabled and projects can be done so that those subjects are, understood better. It also matches with what Padma Priya was saying in terms of having a project associated with every course. And I think that will help a lot in bridging the gap between what people are studying and what the kind of skills that they need to get into the industry. So Professor Indranil, I think over to you. Over a period of time, where have you seen your students getting jobs? What are most of your students who study quantum information science? I know you're more on the theory side, but even in that case, what do your students end up doing? Can you throw some light on that?
See, there has been a lot of interest from the students, not now even, but before, say, down the line of what I'm seeing from 2014. There are students who are actually doing a master's MS by research here in Triple IT and taking quantum as major research domain, working under me or other faculties. We had been the supervisors of those students. So what I see is that there are two types of different students. Those who are looking for PhD after doing the masters, they go to different universities like Max Planck. One of my students had been to the Max Planck. They did after having a master's thesis in quantum information. He did the experimental cryptography in Max Planck, then joined RRI as a under Professor Urvashi Sinha to on working on satellite-based cryptography. So the students are also going to this. They have gone to TCS research lab. Though they are getting jobs in the TCS after doing PhD TCS research lab where they are working on quantum optimization based on quantum algorithms. Some had gone to this academic line that they are actually placed as a professor, assistant professor in various universities. One of my students is in Japan, who is now working as a tenure track faculty in quantum. So, and some had actually moved to industry, and they had been after doing PhD and postdoctoral experiences. We have seen they have moved to industry in TCS and different other place. One of our student who had very strong citation on of his work. So he was, though not my direct student, but he had been to the Xanadu. So they, after completing masters from here, and after doing several publications, he had been placed to Xanadu and working in the Xanadu. So these both this direction moving I am seeing, and they are doing. He's absolutely doing excellent research work over there, and he also visited us to tell about the kind of problems that they are looking at. All these things are
Right.
happening at the time.
That's great to know. I think the fact that a lot of these students have been getting the either placed or pursuing further research and doing good work is, and what you're saying is that these options have been there for several years, right? But as we go forward and there are more and more people graduating in this, as we're moving forward, do you see students complaining or saying that, or showing concern about what kind of careers options are there for them, and any such things that you want to share? Professor Indranil? He seems to be frozen. Is it just me or for everyone? Okay. Okay, we'll come back to that question. I think, Priya, over to you. As a student who is about to finish her master's, what is the kind of, how are you thinking about your career? How are your peers thinking about the career landscape? What are the kind of discussions that are happening? Where is the concern? What does it look like?
Oof, this everybody's talking about this now and everybody's asking about this now. I think, we're exploring different options. What we find is that despite having done a master's now and working on a thesis, quantum is such a big field. There are so many different ways to look at it. There's so many different layers of the stack that you could be on. But what we have is this master has opened up a lot of opportunities because we have a good background, we have a good base to build off of now. So some of us are looking at, as soon as we finish the master, working in startups, in hardware startups particularly, because Dell specializes in that. So these hardware startups are either, say, control electronics or actual superconducting or NV center based qubits, or more optical components and optical qubits. So those kind of things in the hardware front. I have some friends who are looking at quantum machine learning and looking more on the theory and algorithm side. So these are all options. Some quantum chemistry applications. I think largely depends on echoing of what Dr. Indranil just said. Your thesis, either a PhD thesis or a master thesis, or just a large project that you do, a long project that you do, that really sets you up for what you're going to do next. But I'd also like to mention that more non-technical options are also possible. I've also personally been exploring what I can do on the quantum policy side. Of course, after having the opportunity to work with QETCI, I've continued working on policy-related topics, doing small projects. So that's also an option that me and maybe another person from my program are looking at. But yeah, that's also something I see as a viable option.
And what percentage of your of that group roughly would be looking for doing research rather than go to the industry?
I think 50% of the group
Okay,
is
that's a good
looking at
number.
going into the industry, but I will say that because of where we are with quantum, even industry jobs are heavily research based.
Right.
So even if you are in the industry, unless you're working on as an electrical engineer on quantum hardware, even then you will be doing some sort of research, you will be contributing to some sort of research.
Right, right. So, thank you. Professor Indranil, we were asking you a question when you got dropped
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
The
So
question
sorry,
was,
I got
yeah,
disconnected.
no worries. So, the question was that, are you hearing anything from the students in terms of concerns about their career? What are they looking at? I mean, you gave some very good examples of people who were doing brilliantly, but overall, as the landscape is changing and as there are more people who are emerging after studying, have you seen a shift? Are people looking for more?
Yes, so one thing is that as an interest wise, there are many more students who are actually coming compared to it was coming to us. Many more students are actually coming. They are more focused to job, and some are focused to doing PhD and doing academic, taking academics as there. But in person, I have not never seen any particular worry in our institute that regarding the job. But what I personally feel that as there is a requirement of lot of workforce, Mr. Shantanu was telling that faculty development program is one of the crucial thing that one we need to do over the different colleges and different people, so that um, they get to know about this kind of training. Means whatever the AICT minor quantum technology is a very good syllabus that I have looked, and it gives you the entire flavor of all the verticals, starting from quantum materials, sensing, communication. Not only that, at the very beginning of the courses there is quantum foundational courses, so it is very well thought and well planned thing. So the programs like minor programs, and also I would like to tell that even a person who is not following doing a research or looking for a job in quantum, as a part of a CS curriculum or as a part of an EC curriculum, they should have one kind of a core course that will not in the grade in details, but kind of a core course to have the as a introduction to quantum computing. Just like one is having a data science as an introduction to data science, whether they are doing actually work on that. So this kind of small tweaks and changes one needs to do in every universities and every colleges, so that over the time period people are getting more interested on that.
Sure. So over to you, Shantanu. I think since you've been doing this analysis on the education front and the skill, what are the various kind of roles that you are seeing in quantum across the world? Can you know, of course, we talked about policy versus technical roles, but even within that, there is so much variety. Could you share just a few for the benefit of the people who are listening?
Yeah, sure. So I would like first of all say that quantum is a very inclusive field. You don't need to be have an education background in quantum to be working in quantum. People from computer science, mechanical, electronics, and various related fields are working in quantum now, and vice versa. Uh, uh, Towards like more non-traditional roles around the world, we have been seeing that as startups have started to scale, there has been more requirements towards legal ops, product manager, and supporting roles that are also required for quantum, and including a very specific role such as a lab technician, which is also in high demand right now in the field, because uh, you have to understand that quantum is kind of a very niche field. So if you have any background on any information about quantum, you are suitably well placed to be in quantum. So people from legal backgrounds have started looking at quantum and joining various big tech companies as well. So it's a very diverse field, and we have like seeing the shift as we saw in AI as well. When it was more technical, it was more focused on algorithm developers, and now it has moved towards application and n number of endpoints to that field.
So that would
Yeah.
mean that certification courses will also make a lot of difference in the years to come, especially in the near future, right? Because no
Yeah.
degree will
So
come. Yeah.
So these certification courses would be a crucial step because developing a curriculum in itself can take a long time. You need textbook development, curriculum development. You need faculty to teach. You need access to hardware, access to software, and it's a cumbersome process to implement on a nationwide scale. So in the near term, there would be a very high need for these certification courses as well for industry to transition from traditional to quantum roles. That is one point. And I would say from 2022, India has been aware of it, and they have also launched many courses on NPTEL for students to access, as Professor Indranil was pointing out, that computer science students or mechanical students can take. They are It's a wide variety of range from quantum chemistry to a specific quantum mechanics. So that would be a bridging factor that is going to be needed to build a very efficient quantum workforce for the future.
Sure. I'm going to ask one final question to everybody, and then we'll go and look for audience questions. And it's a question which will require some detailed answers, so may not be the final. Uh, so when we look at today, we've looked at the scenario, we've looked at how things are, we've looked at even the different kinds of roles that are emerging. So it's no longer. I remember a time in 2020 and even before that, large companies used to open up. It used to be ridiculous. They would open up a marketing position for quantum, and the job requirement would say a PhD in quantum, and I would start laughing. And I would say, somebody who's done research in quantum, why would they want to do marketing, right? And yes, maybe some of them may want to do it, but is that really a requirement, right? And of course, now we have seen a shift. We've seen, a lot of these, like Shantanu is pointing out, a lot of people from other disciplines sort of coming into the quantum space, because depending on the kind of knowledge that is required for that particular role. So I think that shift is happening. How do we, see this shift further in the future? What is going to happen? Is the skill gap going to widen based on current policies and the way things are going? Or are we very hopeful? That is the first part of the question. The second part is, what do you think should be done? What if you were to, tell the Indian government, especially, let's take India as an example. If you want to tell the Indian government to do something, what is it that you would recommend to prepare us for the future? So two parts to the question, and I'm opening it up. Anybody who wants to take it up first.
I think I can start with the second part of it. What can India do? So these recommendations are like my personal recommendation, but I would say there's a need for more master's level courses and PhD level courses being taught, because undergrad there is a shift towards quantum minor being introduced, but there are not enough master courses. And if you see around the world, around 1/3 to 2/3 of the people that are employed in the quantum field are have a master's degree and not a PhD degree. So that is a shift that India needs to focus on as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go with I'll start off with your. You were asking about this skill gap. Will it widen, or how is it that we're looking at? So Reena, as we all know, being in this ecosystem for a while now, what we thought about long-term goals, how quantum look like back in 2020 or 2022, maybe some have become short-term goals. What we thought of about next year, we can achieve this. That has been pushed to the next 2, 3 years or 5 years. So there is this back and forth that is happening. So on this note, what I would like to put forth here is quantum at this point is not a subject. It is an awareness. So we all need to get our hands into this ecosystem, see what we can do. First, come as everybody are emphasizing about, we are all having these edges and backgrounds around quantum, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. How I can contribute into this ecosystem, in which vertical I can start with, in hardware aspect or software aspect. So this has to be one kind of a clear perspective that each one of us should have. We can come from business background, marketing background, sales, technical, research, or just starting off anything, but this has to be a straight vision that we all need to have. And as I'm again saying, that the innovations and strategies will come from the industry itself. So we should always have that watch out. The outreach should be both ways. So here, when you say that what we can suggest for India, I think has we all as a nation, we have a vision, we have our roadmap. I think there is the bridge of what we can suggest at this point is not so strong. So we are still struggling with our goals and strategies, but industry should play a major role. Startups should play a major role on par with academia. And ecosystems like you should come forward as this strong barrier to put both of them together. And government should be that supporting metal for everything. So this has to be very clear. And leadership in quantum will be someone who is looking at productization and commercialization and training the resources who are very strong in theory. See, why are we having why are we so confident in quantum science? Because there has been a strong theoretical fundamentals that we're building today. So people who are coming from this theory and research play a major role. But what we need to do is to bridge this skill gap. We need to see how we can make this theoreticians into a practical implementation partners. Everybody is a stakeholder in this quantum ecosystem. And only then we can grow this quantum ecosystem in India if we can bridge the skill gap from research to productization and commercialization.
Right.
This is what.
Sure. Thanks for that. Professor Indranil, Priya, any thoughts?
Well, most of the things Gopika and Shantanu had told. So I just would like to add few things on the educational outreach part. So and it is really important, the points that had been mentioned here. One was that how does the industry take part in the teaching process, so that this gap between the doing extremely theoretical research and having a practical quantum, dealing with the quantum computer or say devices. So this kind of an bridging gap is definitely required. So what the panelists have been telling before. And regarding the outreach part, I should just mention one point. We need to engage more people. This engagement of more people will happen when we will reach out not only to the institutes but also to the different universities and the colleges that are right now having degree programs. So at the very degree level, there should be a faculty development program. There should be kind of an workshops where people can actually give hand-on demonstration workshop jointly organized by industry and the academia, so that we bring in more young and interested minds into the field. So once this workforce becomes more strong and strong, I also feel that this skill gap will automatically uh, lower down.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Priya, over to you.
I'm just thinking of what I would have wanted as a student if I were back in India. And I think for me, one thing is if I'm a student in IIT Madras working on quantum communication, I want at least to have access to maybe do a project on neutral atoms in iSearch, or it should be easy for me to consider my options and say, okay, I want to go to TIFR and study superconducting qubits. I should not be limited to where I am, because this allows me to explore my options. Of course, depends on how good I am as a student, whether to be accepted, how much space those labs have. But I think, and not just within academic institutions, but also if I want to work more on quantum machine learning, I want to be able to work with an industry partner on quantum machine learning. So just this connectivity and easy access to collaborate, if there is some system that allows me to do this. Because right now, where I am, in the university that I am, I have this freedom to say there's nothing in Delft for me. I want to go and work with a professor in Amsterdam who's working on something. And this is, of course, Netherlands is a smaller country. So something like that would be really nice. I also see that in Europe, they have between institutes, there are a lot of exchanges between ETH Zurich and TU Munich. The quantum programs, they do exchanges because if we're talking about hardware, there's different kind of qubit modalities. Not every institute is working on all qubit modalities. If we're talking about algorithms and software, there's different kinds of areas. So just that connectivity would be really nice. So this would mean academic institutions in India and maybe even with ones abroad, we would be collaborating a lot more easily. So that's something that would be very helpful to me as a student. You also, the first question you asked was whether we're hopeful that the skill gap will reduce. One thing that a lingering question for me, a lingering uncertainty for me, is the funding for startups or for industry in quantum. So as a student or as somebody that has to find a job, the only thing I might find a job today, but then if funding gets cut 2 years down the line, then I don't have my job anymore. And quantum is still quite uncertain like that. So information about that or some more certainty, that would be really helpful for students.
Sure. So I think in India, just so that everybody is aware, the National Quantum Mission has announced very different funding for quantum startups. If you look at the normal startup policy, then startups get up to rupees 50 lakhs because that was the e-commerce era as grants. But now in quantum, there is a provision for funding up to 50 crores under the National Quantum Mission, depending on from 1 crore to 50 crores, depending upon the stage of the startup, right? And of course, apart from this, in the last 2 years, a lot of Indian startups, quite a few of Indian startups have got VC funding, right? So I think funding situation is improving, and it needs to continue improving, is what we all believe, because it's early stages, and quantum is a very long term. It's a long-term game. It's not, today you start a company and tomorrow, day after tomorrow you start becoming profitable. It doesn't work like that. So I think keeping that in mind, deep and patient capital is required, and I think effort should continue in this space. I totally agree with you. To give some sort of a job certainty so that people can dive deeper into this area. I have another question for everyone. My question is that given that we are still at very early stages of research and there are parallel efforts happening on different technologies, there's a little bit of uncertainty as to 10 years from now, what are the technologies that will remain and which ones will be left behind, right? So for example, when people started off working on NV diamond centers, it was considered a good technology for computing as well. Now pretty much nobody is, there's hardly anybody who's focusing on NV diamond centers for computing. It has been found to be much more relevant for sensors, right? And a lot more companies are focusing on that. A lot more research is happening in that space. So I also feel that if you look at the 10 to 12 different compute technologies that people are focusing on today, the different kinds of approaches people are taking for quantum networks, and the kind of sensors that people are working on, some of this is likely to converge, right? So how prepared are our education systems for actually dealing with this kind of a situation? So this is a classic dilemma, keeping generic versus going specialized to bridge the skill gap. So where are we? How do we see this evolving in the future? Everybody need not answer. It's okay if Professor, you and Shantanu, you have some thoughts, and then of course Gopika, you and Priya, welcome to join in. But
I think the field would keep on changing unless there's a very specific modality that overpowers everything. But the skills are somewhat transferable right now, unless you're very deep into
your voice is breaking up, Shantanu.
particular kind of research.
Your voice is breaking up,
Even
Shantanu.
then, the research is applicable to other certain areas. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. Yeah, definitely better.
Yeah, India currently isn't focusing too much on particular technology, although the courses that are coming up right now are more focused on superconducting qubits, but that is more because the companies that are supporting the faculty development program are focused on that particular modality. There is research going on in every like topological NV diamonds and other part of sectors, but it's very, very niche. It's still a process to take into account. Yeah. The skills would be transferable. It's not like if you're trained in a particular quantum hardware that you won't be able to bridge that or apply it to different hardware. And the way the research is moving, different modalities are also coming together. There has been research to bridge photonics and photonic quantum computer and various other types of quantum computer as well. So yeah, it's still in flux, I would say.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, there are a couple of things. One is that see, when we are going into the quantum and we are thinking that everything that is right now we are happening in the classical systems is going to be replaced by quantum. This is not going to happen. So quantum and classical will go hand in hand. Even in the simplest protocol, even in the communication protocol, the classical sending of classical C bits is essential for the for if I take the example of a simple protocol like teleportation. So or even in the case of quantum computing also, we are not going to directly jump into a fully fault tolerant quantum computer, but rather we are going through this NISQ era, or short death circuits, quantum circuits. So these kind of things which will be very much aligned with the classical circuits and other things. So nothing is going to be fully replaced by quantum. And so that, and for that reason, what brings in, there are a lot of people who are working the optics background, electronics background. They will have an interface with this quantum experiment. So it is important for all of us to involve all the peoples that who are working in the optics, as you are mentioning. But as a verticals, what I feel that the thing that is going to be very immediate. This is my personal feeling that the immediate is quantum sensing. And there are a lot of already been in use. So I see that down the line, the first thing that is without, though I am more work in the quantum communication, I see down the line quantum sensing is going to be the first to get into hand-on applications things. So there are actually a lot of companies who are actually working on quantum sensing and designing things on based on that. So quantum metrology is very important subject. So and that's my feeling is.
Okay, all right. So I think the message that I'm taking away is that there's so much that is common, and there's so much to be done in places where there's a lot of certainty, like quantum sensing, and also there's transferability of skills, so that should not be that big a concern. We can probably, before we open up the questions with the audience, I just wanted to let everyone know that we have decided at the end of this session we will actually compile a report, and then sort of share it with the panelists, and sort of come out with a joint report on the state. We have done our own research, and so we will some sort of a small report on the um, uh, or a concept paper on what is needed from an education perspective. So if there are people in this group who want to send their inputs, and be part of the report, feel free to do so. But for now, let's come to the questions from the audience. There's a question from Rishi Sridhar. Hi, could the panel please also comment on what they think would be the influence of potential economic instabilities on opportunities in quantum, especially given a lot of opportunities available to early career individuals are also in startups. So anybody who wants to take that up, Shantanu?
Yeah, sure. I think if there's potential economic instability in the world, it won't be just affecting quantum. It would be affecting all sectors, basically. Quantum, I would say, would be more immune because right now every country is heavily invested in quantum. It is part of their national security strategy, and they need to have uh, some sort of either quantum communication, quantum sensing, and quantum computing. All three, and for all four verticals basically set up. So, as government is invested in it, they don't want economic instability to affect the quantum space as much, given emerging technology still going from lab to practical. So I would say there shouldn't be too much anxiety because if it's impacting quantum, it's going to affect every aspect of economy, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so I think, especially when you have mission, when you're running something in mission mode, I think the mission is already set and the amount is already outlined and the T hubs have been selected. So at least for the next few years, you are like sort of shock proof for further development to happen on that front. But the economic downturn, of course, will play out on how the startups are kind of funding that they are getting. So how the market positioning is, how are people investing in quantum and stuff like that. So research will continue. I think the other areas have to be managed a lot more better in that sense. But I agree with Shantanu. The quantum security aspect is so big that investments will continue to happen in that space. The next question is from Abdullah. How do the unique challenges of quantum research, such as the need for experimental validation, scalability, and overcoming decoherence, influence the structure of educational programs and career pathways, especially when considering the balance between academic research, industry applications, and government funded initiatives? So, Abdullah, can you speak up? There are many questions hidden in this. Can you please simplify and first ask one simple
Yeah,
question?
so hello. So to elaborate, I wanted to ask, like, in terms of experimental research, so with the current state of art, so there are, I think, many limitations with the current modality, and I think a lot of things which are coming up, right? Especially with Microsoft proposing topological qubits and Google coming up with the below chip. So I want to know, like, how are we, I think, in India are going to change with the different scenarios of experimental research, especially like catching up with all the recent advancements, and in terms of uh, educational progress and even in research, because I cannot see many experimental researchers working here in India in terms of different superconducting architectures. I think there is only a few people. I think Dr. Vijay Raghavan from TIFR might be the one, and I think Dr. Kasturi Saha might be the one, and Dr. Urvashi Sinha. So I think there are quite a few researchers, a handful of researchers which are working in experimental research, and majority of the researchers are working on quantum theory. It can be quantum information science or quantum machine learning. So where are we heading towards experimental research in terms of the
Okay.
scalability?
Yes, yes.
And
Abdul,
yeah.
yeah, I think the question has to be short. Okay, but thank you. I think we got the gist. So, anybody wants to take that up? Otherwise, I have an answer.
We would want to hear you, Reena, actually. This.
So, I think the thing is that this is, Abdullah, I think this is something which is the past. A little before NQM was announced, when NQM was announced that it is it was going to be funding in experimental areas, because very clearly NQM is all about research to commercialization. The end goals given to the technical hubs are not research goals, they are goals for commercialization, product development, right? So it automatically talks about research and then from there to a product, right, bringing it to a certain level, and then of course commercialization comes into picture. So the shift that I have seen in the last few years is that the number of experimental researchers or across India in quantum has actually increased exponentially. It's a very large number of people. When NQM sought inputs, I don't have the exact number, but I was talking to the people associated with the National Quantum Mission, and they were telling me that they had got a few hundred applications from across the country, very well represented from all across the country. So there is a fundamental shift that has happened and is happening and will happen even more towards experimental research in quantum in India. And of course, this will become more visible as we move forward. And the labs that are coming up will also take time to come up. So I think this, in terms of lab infrastructure, the change will be a little bit more gradual, as you see, of course, but I think that shift is happening. And the
Yeah,
QE fund is also being strengthened, actually. Yeah. Yes, Shantanu, go ahead.
Yeah, to add on to what Reena is saying, it's important to note like this kind of question is not just being asked in India, but being asked in Europe as well, where the big tech companies are missing. And we have to remember that whenever these kind of announcements are made, it's a big splash that Google is working on, Microsoft is working, but again, it's only a handful of people that are working in the US as well. So in India, there are research labs working in India, but again, it's not similar to the US or any other country. Of
Your
course,
voice
like
is
there's more
breaking up
funding in the
again,
US, which
Shantanu.
has been long term, but I was mentioning that there has been long-term investment for these kind of stuff in the US, but as Reena pointed out, India has started investing in it. There are researchers exponentially growing, and there are resources coming up. And more importantly, India, since the establishment of NQM, has been partnering with international partners. So it's not that India has to grow everything indigenously. There are companies and countries collaborating with India to bring the hardware and software and all the resources required.
Yeah, thanks, Shantanu. I saw Priya's hand go up briefly. No,
Oh, I
okay.
think Shantanu pretty much summarized what I was going to say.
Okay,
But
okay.
I just think it might also be an awareness thing because, of course, these names and these institutes that are doing really well, we've heard for a long time. But then there are so many of these labs working on all of these hardwares in different parts of the country. So might also just is an awareness issue, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I think that needs to be addressed as well. Uh, I hope that question is answered, Abdullah. We'll
Yeah,
come
yeah,
back.
yeah. I think yeah, question was answered. I have some two follow-up questions to ask.
So, Abdullah,
So
can
is
you
it
hold on? Can you please hold on?
yeah.
Let's give an opportunity to other people to ask questions, and then we'll
Okay,
come
okay,
back to
sure, sure.
you. We have plenty of time. So, I'm going to ask anybody who has questions to raise their hand, please. Anybody else who has questions? Otherwise, we can ask Abdullah. Please go ahead then. Abdullah, you can please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, so my question was like, is it really worth it to spend the time and efforts in doing a PhD in quantum engineering science or experimental quantum research, given the instability and the current situation of the quantum industry right now? Is I think it's kind of maturing at the moment, right? So, is it really worth it to go for a PhD right now at the moment, or to go for a more like a focus career, like going into for doing an MS or doing an MBA afterwards? And also, my second question was like, what would be the best possible pathway or route to actually break through into techno management roles or more like advisory roles into quantum computing? So yeah.
Yeah, so Priya, you want to answer that?
Just the first part about whether a PhD is worth it, because I've spent the last 4 to 6 months thinking very deeply about it, and now I'm convinced that indeed a PhD is a good idea, and that's what I'm going to do next. But I think one, in whatever scenario, skills are super transferable. I hear this a lot, but I've also experienced this a lot lately because of how multidisciplinary quantum is. Even if you've done a PhD, even if you're concentrating on one very niche problem, you're applying tools and methods from various disciplines. So I think it's the skills are transferable. So even in the worst case scenario, you're fine. And second, I think a PhD is important because of how young quantum still is. I think it really focusing on one problem and really going into the depth of it is, I think, is quite valuable, or I'm convinced is quite valuable. I don't know what Professor Indranil and Gopika have to say about this, but I'm curious to hear.
I also agree with Padma Priya that it's important to have PhD, and I see maybe I am in a academic background. I feel in that way, but yeah, it's true that these kind of skill sets, and if you are doing want to do experimental research, and if you want to do experimental research, you need to have a solid masters and PhD background for that. And not only because there are so many things, so many topics that will come into the picture, not only from the information science perspective, but also from the computing side, but also from the you have to learn classical information theory to understand the quantum information theory. Without doing that, you will not able to understand this. So all these courses has requires a lot of bandwidth. And this is, I'm just only talking about the information side, but from the physics, quantum mechanics side, there are lots of things we have to learn. So, and also from the continuous variable quantum information, all these things are there. So the courses, the advanced level courses, like to do research, to do industry research, or to do research in academics, requires PhD. And I also agree to that. It should
So I think
be
that's
like
the
that.
general consensus. Anybody has a contrary viewpoint? Gopika, Shantanu?
There are not a contrary viewpoint on this at this point in time, but I just remembered when I was studying about how quantum evolved in the last century, what happened. Every scientist has been ridiculed for whatever discovery he has put through in quantum and negating classical physics, right? To start off with, and no back then, even today, publishing papers and everything was a thing. And people were like, why are you doing this? You will not get a PhD. Your thesis will not be accepted. Your supervisor will not accept you. All, but still they went through all that. Not because that was the trend that is happening. See, today we are seeing light. It's in this era. We have narrow applications. If you see recently on NVIDIA Quantum Day, 5 to 15 years of timeline suddenly has become 3 to 5 years. For whatever they see, it has become such. As I told you, shorter and long-term milestones, things are changing. But today we know that there is industry working, there are startups working, there are labs working, and now we are in this dilemma what to do. Back then, there was nothing of this sort. They didn't think that there would be a quantum computer, but still they went ahead building the fundamentals. So today also we all have a chance, we all have an opportunity to add something to this quantum science and ecosystem. It is not that it is done and dusted, the dot has been put. You can still add to it. But we should know, do as Indranil ji, Professor Indranil ji was saying, do I have it in me to go through the basics, information science, quantum information science, classical information science, error correction? How many of us study classical computer architecture, error correction codes? We have the classical systems ready. We're just giving 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. We know it'll come for us. But now for every physical qubit, we have set of logical qubits that are being put. Are we ready to invest that time and energy to go back? I'm just talking about one part of quantum to go back and do that research. If it is such, if it is the case, I should definitely go and do a PhD. And as Padma is saying, that it is a transferable skill. When I do research, I'm just not doing a research in a subject. I'm doing research in my attitude of learning something from scratch and having the efficacy to add something to it. Now, tomorrow I might be put in QML, I might be put in sensing, materials and devices quantum. I will definitely add something to it because I have it in me. That is a skill that we are trying to talk about here.
Sure, and I would like to
I just
just
add
say,
one thing, because
yeah.
Gopika madam had mentioned a very interesting point to which. So just to give you example, Mr. Abdullah, that uh, what she was talking about, you take the example of Bell's inequality. The Bell's inequality, the whole foundation quantum thing. At that time, it was taken as a philosophical research, and people are just doing it because they believed in it. And even so, there are people who are visionaries. Even in the early 2000, our teachers were telling us, because they had that vision. Then there is no so much application in the experimental side during that, but they are telling that this will revolutionize the information processing. So that has inspired us. So because of those teachers words, they kept on saying, though they are not from the field, but they had that vision. They are telling us that this is going to change. So that is why we picked up as a research subject. And when we are going through this kind of Bell's inequality, so this whole 1934 to 1960, until the whole amount of people are telling that this is just of philosophical interest. Only when Bennett came with the BB84 protocol, we start, and if the Short came with this error correcting code, then only people able to understand that this has real important value.
So
Right.
those are good points. And in fact, one of the things which I feel in any technical area is that whenever there is a new trend, everybody wants to get onto that wagon, right? And so applied everything is, because we have applications coming up on quantum on the hardware and software side, there is so much question on who's doing applied research or not. I just hope that in this transition, we don't forget that fundamental science is equally important, because there are so many unanswered questions in quantum as yet, and therefore an equal amount of focus is required on that too, right? For example, the fact that we have something called a collapse of the wave function, and how does that happen is unknown. And quantum mechanics and Einstein's theory of relativity, both special and general relativity, they have not been reconciled. So there are a lot of open questions, and the future Nobel Prizes, and in terms of how technology will benefit from this, is totally unknown. So these areas need to be continue to be an area of focus for researchers as well. And I think this is an important message I feel for even governments and people who are investing in research, to make sure that while we are making this pivot, for which we are the ones who have been pushing for this pivot, but at the same time, we should not forget the fact that fundamental research is equally important. Let's move to the next question. There is somebody who's logged in through a Samsung phone. I don't know what their name is, and they have a question. Can you please identify yourself, switch on your video, and ask that question? You're logged in as Samsung S10. And the question is, what is the view on the research culture in India? Are you still there? Please go ahead and unmute yourself. I mean, it's important to identify yourself, isn't it? Can you please identify
I think I
yourself?
can,
Write your name.
I think I can like take up the
No, wait, or
question.
I don't want any anonymous people on the call. And what do you do, Shrira? So this person is Shrira. You're a consultant. Okay, great. So Shrira wants to know, I'll repeat the question. How do the unique, okay, no, this is, what is the view on research culture in India versus research rich nations like Germany, US, UK, etc.? Asking this particularly because professors traditionally in India are known to not be the most open-minded. However, is it changing, and what's the impact on the progress in quantum industry in India? Yes, Shantanu, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think uh, I would consider India as a research rich nation as well. But traditionally, the course structure that have been put up in India was more focused and more rigid. There has been a change to include more flexible and open curriculum, as the curriculum Padma Priya also pointed out. So there has been a shift, and uh, the research as such has been very fluid and hasn't been rigid. That's why quantum has been progressing the way it has been moving in India. Yeah, I think that's all. I'm not sure what
I think the culture is
else.
also changing. Culture is also changing. It is a lot more competitive environment right now for everybody, because there is so much opportunity and so much to do. So culture is changing. I would not say that there was rigidity. I think what I felt was that because traditionally in India the industry research collaboration has been more limited. It has been going on for much longer with large corporates in the West. So India is still, in the process of working out what is the best mechanism. Some of the institutes have worked it out really well, like IIT Madras actually is very well known for doing industry collaborations. IIT Bombay is also doing some of those. IC is also doing now. Now you can hear all the major IITs and ISC and other institutes and triple ITs are all doing industry collaborations. So this shift has been happening, and I think approaches are changing because of that. I think maybe somebody looks back 20 years, and looks at today, it looks very different. Priya, and then we'll have Abdullah ask his next question. I know he's been raising his hand for quite a while. Yeah.
No, I just want to add one thing about something that I find, and I might be biased, and this is more anecdotal, but I find that the amount of rigor in India, especially in quantum, the little experience that I've had, the amount of rigor is exceptional, and it's something that I have not found here in the Netherlands, which is a rich country, research-rich country for that matter. So the academic rigor is still something that I think we do quite well in. If you can look up even the basic NPTEL course on quantum that IIT Madras and IBM offer together, just the depth to which that course goes to compare to other online courses in quantum, you can really see that difference. And I think that that's something really appreciable, and I think that's something we should not forget.
Sure. Thanks. I hope your
Reena,
question is answered,
Aishwarya,
Frida. And over to Abdullah for the next question.
Reena,
Yeah.
Aishwarya, there.
Aishwarya has a question. Yeah, yes. Just one
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
Aishwarya, can you come online and ask your question? Are you still there? I think she may have logged off.
Okay. I just wanted to say this. I mean, no mic. Okay, Aishwarya, you can write to us. We are working so on this specific aspect that you have asked for in our sources for APS QKD. Please do write to us your question.
So there is another question from which has come just to me from Arun. What is the scope of the area of interface between machine learning or AI and quantum computing? More specifically, quantum enhanced machine learning. Are there companies in India exploring this space? Does this come under NQM? So this doesn't come under NQM, but I'll let Gopika answer about what companies are doing.
Yes, it doesn't come under NQM, and mostly people are pushing. Why not? Because we are not ready yet. Because AI, the computational backend, the GPU, CPC, the infrastructure for AI is skyrocketing on one end, and we are talking about toy problems that we are trying to solve on QML. Yes, the potential of QML is very good in this aspect of, if you see drug discovery, logistics, supply chain management, there are beautiful applications once we have such kind of a backend as we have to have for an AI platforms or infrastructure or quantum computer. Definitely QML is the thing that I'm going to talk about in this very session. But we are not there yet. So we can still solve toy problems. We can still have those kind of theories about this can be done once we have a powerful enough quantum.
Yes, Abdullah, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Can I add to the what Gopika madam told? Just one
Yeah,
thing
yeah, sure,
to
sure.
this
Please
AI
go
question.
ahead. Yeah, yeah.
So there is a lot of interface with the quantum AI. So in one hand, there are quantum inspired machine learning algorithms like quantum neural network, QSVM, all this, but actually classical machine learning is helping in quantum error correcting codes in quantum state tomography. So it's not like that. It's also there are problems in quantum mechanics which are getting solved with the help of this AI. So just to example, to know about the state, we do something called quantum state tomography. So AI is helping over there what the measurement statistics to know about the state quantum state tomography and also in error correcting code. These are the two things that I wanted to add.
I think
So it's a both process.
yeah, I think it's important you brought that up. Even on the materials side, AI is actually helping discover some of the new materials that are very good for quantum, right? So AI is doing, and then
Right.
AI and quantum together have a lot of potential to do even more advanced material discovery. So that is where I think Gopika is talking about that some of that is future, but today AI is helping to discover some of those materials as well. Yeah. All right, we have just we have reached the end time, but Abdullah, if you can quickly frame your question, we can
Yeah.
take 2 more minutes.
So my question was, I think, as Gopika ma'am was talking about the skills. So there is one important skills we are missing out over here. So this is the theoretical validation, right? So when it comes to research, I think most of the researchers, I think, kind of miss upon theoretical validation. So when considering the skills of a candidate, even when hiring, how are we looking into people who actually are not publishing the results in peer review journals like physical review letters or the quantum journal, because I think these are highly high impact journals which are peer reviewed. And how about we like what are your opinions on people who actually have some good peer reviewed papers over people having skills which are like mostly open source, like who are actually focused on publishing research papers with theoretical validation? And even, and how can we actually verify such results coming from researchers which are based on like false assumptions or something like that, which are not peer reviewed or not theoretically validated? Yeah.
Who wants to take that? Gobika.
Yes, yes. So Abdullah, as you said, there are no benchmarks as of today. If you see, there are no benchmarks that whatever you have put forth as part of your thesis or paper publication, there are no certain benchmarks. But if you're publishing in this tier one, tier two, there is a confidence that the reviewers know what they are reviewing and they have put through your paper. That means your work has a substantial content in it. Having said that, it is good to have such kind of a papers that you've published. It can be from open source or it can be that Q1, Q2 journals that you're talking about. But our hiring pattern, I can only speak for ourselves because we are not MNC having an R&D like, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they have an R&D wings and they actually look at all this very specifically. But what we look at is whatever roadmap that we have, whatever projects or experimentation or productization ideas that we have, are your skills aligned across it? If you have certain papers that you've published, if you have certain projects that you've worked with, if you've worked with certain labs as part of your internship summer programs, we just look at that. And we are not even asking you if you have done the experimentation that we want to do. So for example, we are doing something in quantum memory or communication. And you come as a physicist, are you good with lasers? Can we put you in this aspect of it? If you are coming from a mechanical electronics background, can you do this electromechanical, electromechanics? Can you build circuits for us? Can you handle this error correction? So these are the specific areas that we want to see if you're good with. If your paper support it, if your thesis support it, well and good. As Pratibha was saying, if you're working in a lab, you have to work in an environment, not just one thing that we look at. Yes, definitely will.
Okay. One more question. Are there researchers? Anurag has a question. What is the state of development of new quantum algorithms in India? For example, Shor and Grover algorithms. So are we attempting to do big algorithms like that in India? Not that I'm.
Anurag,
Yes, please.
Anurag, I can answer your question. So now these algorithms, there are a couple of two different types of algorithms. One is these NISQ based algorithms, which are heuristic algorithms, and there are fault tolerant algorithms. So now the algorithms are more pinpointed to tackle a particular problem, right? Even if you see, there is a lot of scope in quantum neural network, quantum machine learning to develop new methods, right? So there are lots of work that are actually going on the algorithm sides. So least square regression, all these kind of algorithms that are coming, solving system of equations, all these kinds of algorithms are coming up. But see, when a subject is a baby, is just taking baby steps, right? Then the results are more powerful because it opens up new direction, new things. But now the subjects are getting more and more complex with time, and because of the complexity of the subject, you cannot have a big algorithm that will encompass solve every problem. That can be algorithm specifically tailored made for a particular problem, and that particular problem can be in a particular setting, like in a noisy settings. For example, if you have a noisy circuit, in how much the noisy tolerance can happen, that algorithm can accommodate. What is the complexity associated with that algorithm? These are the very important questions. Is it beating the classical complexity or not? People will try to look, not just because they want to give algorithm, but they will try to give the algorithm only if it is beating that the complexity.
Fair. I think lot of work is happening, and of course the results will not be as dramatic as Shor's algorithm, because that was like the beginning of the quantum era. So any other questions? Arun, why don't you please ask the question if you can? Identify yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I'm Arun. So my question was basically regarding this quantum inspired machine learning, essentially using like quantum to get better results in machine learning. So that's like things like tensor networks and all that. So are there researchers in India that are interested in this area, or like basically ideas from quantum information theory also for doing machine learning? uh, you know uh, is there any work in that area that
Yes, it is, and let's Priya has something to say. So please go ahead, Priya.
Just a particular case, but and I'm not entirely sure if they're still working on it, but there's some complexity theory, learning theory related research going on even in IBM Quantum, which is not particularly. So I think they're also looking at quantum inspired methods, quantum AI, and things like that. And Professor Nindranil probably knows a bunch of other people who are working on it, but I think yes.
this is probably IBM USA, right? This
No,
complex.
IBM India, I mean. IBM India.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
Yeah.
So
Though
my
we could
understanding.
also send you a list later if that's, I don't have them at the back of my head, but if there's some way we could, because Mom, you were talking about a report, so
Yeah,
maybe we could
absolutely.
make
Yes.
a
And there are
mention of
more
it.
people working in that
Yeah.
space in the intersection of quantum and AI. Some
Absolutely.
of like Gopika said, some of that work is current and some of this work is for future preparation. Once we have more, uh, you know, power and capacity with quantum computers available to us, right? But definitely it's an area of research interest in India as well as
No,
everywhere
I
else.
think IIT Delhi was the one I was looking at.
Yes.
They had some stuff, yeah. On tensor networks particularly.
Right.
Right.
All right. Vijay, you had a question?
Yeah. Uh,
Can you please, can I request people to introduce themselves and their background so that, answer can be tailor-made to their, this thing.
okay. My name is Vijay. I have a background in electronics engineering, specifically semiconductor design. I've taken a few courses. So all I wanted to know is, without a maths, physics, or computers background, are there opportunities? A lot is talked about how multiple disciplines are required in this field. But every time I see a position, whether freelance or industry, there's always, that barrier of a big degree before you. So there is some control, readout, circuitry, FPGA, and all that. So are there opportunities, or is it like a dead end?
So, let me answer that question, and this will be the last one. We've actually already over time. I think the other options are, let's say, even if you look at policy, right? Even to be able to make significant impact on the policy side for quantum, even if you've not studied quantum, you still have to understand the basics of quantum, and you need to at least know what are the various areas in quantum. You need to understand when somebody says Shor's algorithm, what does it mean, and you need to be able to understand the dependencies between the hardware and the software, which means that at least a basic working knowledge of quantum is required to be able to do policy work. When we look for policy fellows, I can't just pick up anybody who is interested and bring them on the table, right? There has to be either an inclination of quickly learning with a relevant technology background, and then be able to take it forward from there. Now, let's look at some of the other skills sets. Let's say we want to look at lawyers. So, what do lawyers need to know? Somebody in the legal team for a quantum company or supporting researchers in quantum, I think they need to understand IP, right? Intellectual property. So they may come with their own expertise on intellectual property, understanding of intellectual property in the context of international laws, understanding the context of regulatory environment, and how can products in a in a dual use technology, how does that work out? What needs to remain within the nation, what needs, and how do you file for IP and all of that. Not only that, you need to they need to understand that in case there are IP conflicts, what does the landscape of conflicts in this particular technology look like. So then a certain amount of knowledge of quantum has to be built in with the core skill that you already have. So for any profession, you bring your core skill to the table, but you have to build a knowledge of quantum to the extent that the role requires, right? So somebody from pure electronics background, a lot of people from pure electronics backgrounds are part of startups, by the way, quantum startups, and even part of the research labs, especially on the sensors side, even on the computing side, and so on, right? So I think while there is a lot of possibility, everybody needs to pivot towards quantum, and quantum is not as simple. In fact, AI was considered complex. Quantum is even more complex. So I think certain amount of effort has to go in for anybody to work in an area which is quantum, although you may be from a different profession. Does that answer your question, Vijay? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Does that answer your question?
I suppose I was looking for something more specific. I understand you need to put in the hard work. I'm not a greenhorn, like I said. I can look when you go on to Qiskit, you make all those algorithms. It doesn't
No, but
matter.
that's no. So that is the mistake that people make. Let me make it very clear. When we talk about somebody understanding, even in the classical computing, I don't know why people pivot so much on saying I'm a C++ or C programmer. That's a language. Understanding computer architecture, understanding what happens at the system level, assembly level programming, how does code translate, all of that is much more important. Understanding networking protocols is much more important if you are working on something which is core to the technology than learning a language. Learning the language is like the icing on the cake. The learning the language does not differentiate. If you have an electronics background or anybody has a computer science background, then if they say that I am a C++ expert, it's like very foolish, because even somebody who's done any course on the planet can actually learn C++ language or learn C language. So learning a language is not a proficiency on the classical side. It can be picked up by anybody. As somebody with domain experience or financial sector domain experience, if they pick up the language, they automatically become better than you, because you're not leveraging, I don't mean you, but somebody who's on electronics is not leveraging their core skill or the fundamental knowledge, but is relying on C++ programming as a skill, then they will lose out to a financial sector expert, because domain expertise is important. Similarly, on the quantum side, if somebody is an electronics expert, they have to look at how does electronics interfaces work for quantum, and on the sensing side, photonics and electronics, how does it work together for you to be part of a team. And the moment people understand that, they can pick up the more relevant course. When you go ahead and you do any companies, I don't want to name any company, but you start learning programming on any company's platform, you should use it only as a basis for clarifying your fundamentals, because that's all that it will do. It will make you very clear. It will make clear to you as to how programming is happening in quantum. And so your focus while learning that should be to learn the fundamentals, not the focus on the language, because languages can be learned by anybody. Today it seems like a big deal, but day after tomorrow these people will not have any jobs. Sorry, nobody is going to hire people because they have skills in programming certain on a programming environment, especially if you're coming from electronics or semiconductor or hardware technology. I'm not saying that there will be no jobs for those people. Once we have scalable quantum computers, the same thing will happen that has happened on the classical side. You will have abstraction, and then people have to program on top of that. And people can write different kinds of programs to interface with the quantum computer for different solutions. And I think that time you will have a much bigger requirement for such people, and therefore all those people who learn these languages will have jobs. Today people do these short courses where they learn these languages, and I'm not saying don't do these courses. They're very important because they help you clarify the fundamentals. but you don't do that certification from the perspective of saying I've learned a language, because that's useless. And I think that may be a little controversial what I'm saying, but I'm very convinced about this. Anybody wants to debate me on this, you can reach out separately, and I'll tell you exactly why your long-term career is not going to survive on something like this. So we have already run over time. I'm going to ask the panelists. There seem to be more questions. What is your guidance?
Always can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm available in the same name, Gopika Chakandi. Yes.
Okay,
We
so
do have. Yes.
yes, so please write your questions. You can send those questions to us and say which panelists you want, or you want a generic answer. We'll be very happy to get back to you. We've run over time, majorly 15 minutes, and it's very interesting to know so much interest on this topic. Also, please reach out to us if you want to participate and play a role in this report that we are planning, and you have inputs to give to us. And with that, I will take the opportunity to thank all the panelists for being there and very actively engaging with everyone, and also, you know, supporting and staying longer than we had requested you to. And thank you to everybody who has joined. I hope this was useful. We are going to actually share this recording on a YouTube channel as well, so you can let people know if they haven't been able to attend. They can always go to the channel and check. It'll take a week before it's up. All right then. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much,
Thank you,
Mom.
Lina. Thank you, all of
Thanks,
you.
Lee. Yep. Bye.
Bye.